What's up, y'all? Abandoned, this is an abandoned camp. It's down in Rhode Island. It used to be a summer camp for the Boys and Girls Club. This was actually a main road that you gotta drive in. Oh yeah. These are the old cabins. This is the old Village 1. I actually came to this summer camp. I spent a lot of good summers here. This was the only way to get inner city kids out the city. This was basically a camp. A lot of the inner city Boys and Girls Clubs. And then they were losing it, and the Indians were gonna buy it. And then the state didn't want the Indians to buy it because they would have enough acreage for what they needed for sovereign land. And we can't have that. It's a shame too, because they let all these structures go to waste. Good morning, Mr. Sweeney. But right here is where, like, all these trees, there was a fire pit in the middle. And that's how long it's been abandoned. And that was the latrine where you went to the bathroom. I'll show you the cabins. You know what's crazy though? As many times as I'm up here, I never seen no bunnies. I never seen no low type of animal, low wildlife, ever. And I was thinking, because I think, because of all these structures that they could live in, I think coyotes, you know, or mountain lions actually, you know, this is their den or their home. These are the old cabins. See all these gray structures, right, to have a summer camp, right? They just let them go to waste. They just have all the bunk beds were lined up. It's so stuffy, you can't even breathe. Holy shit. Woo! You definitely won't be able to breathe in there.
I ain't not going in. I just looked at the cabinet. I do not go inside. Okay, sir. I look from the outside in.
Oh, they don't want to let them buy their old land back.
No, they should be. It's not going to me.
See, this is the old latrine, right? So in the morning, you get up, you go over here. The bathroom was in there. Here's where you wash your hands and shit. And right there was the shower. That's right. That was the shower area. You know? Yeah, take some outside showers.
They said I can do it too.
But yeah, this is
Moss on top of it.
so I think this is coyotes actually,
Yeah,
living in
definitely
this
is.
camp or something does because
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I'd never seen, no rabbits, no squirrels, nothing low for wildlife anyway. My buddy a few years back needed a place to chill out for a little while, camp out, and I was like, he came right over here, but he said at night it got spooky because we're deep in the woods in Charlestown, deep in the woods. Yeah, if they're gonna squat, they'll squat close to like city life. Very rarely will they squat, way out here because you still gotta get to the stores and
Yeah, I don't see people squatting out here. This is too far. Too far. Especially in the middle.
like I said, I had a buddy of mine that needed a place
Yeah, the old place is.
to hide out and chill for a little while and he was set up over here at the camp all by himself, but he said at night it got real spooky. He said that's them mountain lions. We had an old summer camp out in Rhode Island. I figured, let's go show the peoples, the people, the people, the people, the people, the people, the people, the old summer camp. Like, this was the only way to get a fishing pole in the inner city kid's hand, or go out on the boat or a canoe. So this is village 2.
It was village too.
There's the old latrine. Like I said, I used to go to this camp. Hashtag Camp Davis. Oh shit.
Brings back memories.
Yeah, Alton Jones, I think the one at URI did. Yeah, I went to that camp. See, there's the cabin. See, there's an open structure right there. You gotta be careful of the ones with no doors on them. Like I said, they got mountain lions out here. Not big ones, but big enough. I mean, they just look like a big ass kitten. Maybe the size of a Doberman. um, you got bears. That's a shame that they stopped the funding on a lot of them programs for like inside the cities, and there's no place for the kids to go, like rec centers, and that's why the training schools get filled up, because there's no place for the kids to go. They don't do no preventative measures with the kids in the city. They shut down all the gyms. Oh, we don't have money. How much would it cost to put someone there, entry level, 15-20 bucks an hour, from 3 to 9 o'clock at most of the rec centers in the cities, even in the suburbs? Because even in the suburbs, you got the kids walking the streets at night, breaking into cars, going in open cars, trying to see what they could find. Crimes of opportunity. But we don't do anything to prevent that. I used to write grants to foundations to raise money, but inner city kids out in nature, I miss it. Yeah, it was cool. That's what this camp basically was. All the local boys and girls clubs. All the local boys and girls clubs. This was the old soccer field. We'll come back here in the summertime too. That was a big soccer field and shit. So what's everybody been up to? What's the latest news? What's going on? We already know about the restraining order. I heard Turtle Boy trial is gonna be the week of Thanksgiving, I think. But that's crazy that they let this place just go. Look at it, destroyed. This was from all the heavy snow. I mean, there was trees down before, but we got a lot of heavy snow recently. Yep, the old basketball court. I always said if I hit the Powerball that I would like to. Of course we all have pipe dreams, right? If. And I usually don't do that, but if, I would always love to figure a way out to get the land off the state. You have to make a deal with them, though, that you won't sell it ever, and it'll go back to them and get money. The old Kimball Lodge. See, and they even broke all the windows because they didn't want nobody living in them. See, all the windows on that place was busted out. Yeah, definitely make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button. We got 17 memberships. Shout out to everybody that's been supporting with the memberships. 17 memberships. And we got to think of something to do exclusively for the members. I was gonna do this trip just for the members, but I was like, nah, there's a lot of people that I just couldn't do it, but we got to figure something exclusively to do for the members. Shout out to the members, man. We got 17. Grab a membership, support. And I appreciate that. A gift of membership. See, they broke all the windows so nobody can, sleep in here. These have a big old kitchen, Good day to everybody. Shout out to the old biker Rando. Shout out. Appreciate everybody that supports. I said the other day, I was thinking, Turtle Boy says that, he built this. He built this culture and I think I said the other day that he was just the loudest mouth and they allowed him to be the loudest mouth in the room. But there was so many great content creators like Mike Crawford, Brian, just so many of them. You had, the Uncle Debbie guy, you had Will, good and bad, you got to shout them all out, right? You had Nurse Kim, so many content creators that built this movement, and movements usually move, right? Here's another building. This is the old office and stuff. That's where the flag was. So what happens, like lunchtime, breakfast time, each village will run over here, and the first one here puts up the flag. There's the big mess hall. Mess hall's pretty big. But later on, I'll try to put up an image of the, look how open this is. All the trees, this was such a condensed area. We have all the trees that are flipping over.
The flag used to be. My name's on here somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the support. I don't care if there's only 11 people or 100 people, 1,000 people. You know what? I'm happy with the 11. I'm happy with the 11. But there was so many great content creators that are responsible, I think, for creating this movement. But lately, it's became a little dark. It's became a dark, like the dirty section, the dark side. And that was basically constructed by Aiden Connie, matching up, putting people against each other. And that's kind of like, this reminded me of that, seeing all the trees that fell, all the great content creators that fell, that crashed out, that just couldn't survive because of all the negativity. And that's what this fire is actually reminding me of, was the movement, the content creators, the people that built this movement. And focus on, helping people and freeing people and, maybe giving people another chance at freedom, people that got the shit end of the stick. And what was great about Karen Reed is Karen Reed was a unicorn. You know, let's face it, what happens to Karen Reed happens to people every day. You know, people that are poor. What happened to Karen, falsely charged, overcharged, that happens to people every day. And Karen Reed was the unicorn. She was privileged. Now we seen the white privileged lady getting screwed over by the system. Then you had all them great content creators come out and support her. And created that mega movement. And then look, the storm came through. And all these trees represent content creators that couldn't last.
All these trees. Crashing down. Boom, 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 boom. You know how old these trees are. Old and old. This one looks like they can stand in the field.
But I think there's still enough good people around that it could be built back up. People like, you read that Eddie O'Brien case, and you kind of like you go deep into the Eddie O'Brien case, and you see like this kid was 15 years old when he entered the correctional system, right? 17 when he entered a maximum security prison. Oh, he definitely will be kicking like a champ. So Eddie goes in there and he's so young, and Eddie, you could tell he's a big softy, you know. So at 15, at 17, he's a boy, you know. I mean, the demons, prison is a demonic place. I mean, there's a lot of dark forces in them places, you know. Only thing that they respect is violence. And Eddie don't have his mother, don't have his parents, his dad. There ain't no mommy. He can't call mommy. So Eddie going in at 15 must have been, you know, traumatized. And especially if Eddie is innocent. Knowing that I'm in here for something that I did not do. And now he's in a maximum security prison with nothing but straight vultures and wolves surrounding him. And then what he's dealing with inside his mind. And you gotta think, I'm in here doing life. You know what I mean? I'm in here doing life. I'm never getting out. And I did not commit this crime. You know, so helping people like Eddie O'Brien, you know, like still what JFK's doing, going over, you know, the lady Susan, you know, maybe talking about cases that got overturned. Maybe if you know somebody, you know, that got a raw deal and we need to talk about it. You know, stuff like that.
That's how you make giving up. Showing them it's just good.
You know, the school system's all screwed up. I mean, now Eddie's been in there so long, you're basically institutionalized at this point. Like coming home to some of these guys, and I'll give you an example in a minute. After you do 30 years in a prison setting, you're institutionalized. That's all you know. You know how to move like a clock, like a rhythm. And for Eddie, going in so young, what's two things that have not changed over forever? Phones changed, cars changed, transportation changed. Schools and prisons have not changed. We still educate the same way, and we still put men in prison the same way as we did hundreds of years ago. Schools and prisons. Everything else evolved. Yeah, even do a small little bid. I knew this guy, Mike Arnold. He did a bunch of time, and he said, Mikey, he said, I was standing at my front door, like, waiting for it to open. You know? He said, it took forever to be able to have a metal utensil in my hand. You know what I mean? What do you do in school? You move to a buzzer. You move by time. The bell rings. Same thing inside prisons. You know, the desks are all file line, you know, single file. Same thing in prisons. Uniforms. They want to keep everybody in uniforms. The discipline. Don't you dare talk. No, you can't go to the bathroom. No, you can't. Same thing, you know, so Eddie going in so young, you know, adjust to it, you know, and over all them years, how they said Eddie was what, a psychopath? He never showed any tendencies of being psychotic. Now you look at someone like a Craig Price. But other than that, Eddie, who I do want to free, but will have a very hard time once released. I think Eddie would, Eddie might be one to adjust a little bit easier. But yeah, it'll be a hard time for anybody to adjust. My uncle Eric, right, Huck, God rest his soul, but he used to say that in jail he was a somebody, and on the street you just an average person again. You know, because, you know, there's respect in jail. Those that didn't see it, there's the old village. We're at an abandoned camp, way deep in the woods. When the weather gets a little nicer, we'll come back. We'll go down to the water. No, not someone's wife. I said inside jail they feel that they are somebody. They have a rep, people know who they are. And on the street, they an average person. You know, I was just making the comparison that some people, they be in jail locked up for so long, they don't want to leave. They get used to it. They get comfortable. They get comfortable. Because life's easy.
Before you never heard
It's the old camp office. Message retracted. Well, maybe they made a mistake, but if they're trolling, they gotta pay to troll. If they pay, they could troll. Can't let them troll for free. So if you want to troll, you gotta pay. I think I'm gonna get another green screen. I got one green screen that I could take with me on the road. I got so much equipment for podcasting. I could set up a complete like 5 mic round table. Thank you. Why, I'm right? I mean, if they're gonna pay, let them troll. We could be entertained. Not my regulars, but if they're gonna troll, they could pay. I don't even mind people disagreeing once in a while. Like, you know, of course, people are gonna disagree with you. That's why we got good mods. Damn, these damn trees. Look at that one. That one is like, yo. But like I was saying, there's a lot of great creators that created this movement, man. I don't think any one person created what's going on here. And I bet there's a lot of people. Absolutely. And I bet there's a lot of people like Eddie. You know? You know, I was reading the Innocent Project website the other day. He said Wisconsin will only give you $5,000 a year if you're wrongfully convicted. And the most they'll give you is $25,000. I was like, what? Like, there was this dude a few years back, former cop, and he was wrongfully convicted of murder. And he did like 10, 15 years. And then somebody else admitted to the crime. Killed this lady in the Howard Johnsons and put her in a fold-up couch. And a former cop got convicted of it. And come to find out, he didn't do it. So I was like, you're doing all that time. You got to go to PC. Protective custody. Where Aiden will probably be. You can go on that app. What is it, Kelsey? And we should put money on a conviction percentage for Aiden. Real terrible. But you know what? Not for none. Outside this small area, nobody even knows who the hell Aiden is. But that was some bitch shit what he did with that restraining order. And usually, if she has one on him, they reciprocate. I didn't see the reason that he needed one. It's my general, my boss. Keeps me out of trouble. Remember Dennis the Menace? They was like, oh, don't let that shit fool you. He's a badass kid. I was a badass kid though. Little white boy growing up down the street from Man Projects. My uncle was the lifeguard at the pool. Aiden gave his reason. He said it was tactical. But isn't that weaponizing the courts? And the shit that he said, like, I don't see Aiden passing up the chance to do some party favors. You know what I mean? When he said, oh, Meredith said, you know, you want to have some Coca-Cola. And he said, well, I declined. I doubt that. I very much doubt he declined. What do you guys think? I don't think he declined. That's right, Dennis the Menace. Yeah, so I don't see he declined. All the despicable things he says, how, you know, getting off in the Wilbur bathroom and just, I don't know, I just can't respect him as a man, and my moral compass is fucked up. You know what I mean? And I can't respect shit that man does. I have my fair share of trouble. I definitely had my fair share of trouble. Yeah, no, I don't see him declining. Absolutely not. I see him getting bent. Peeping out the window. I mean, you're just a rat. You know, the restraining order shit, like, that's the same thing like filing a statement on somebody. You just a rat. He used the court system. It ain't up to society norms, but fuck society norms. Yep. There was a point in time, the Lad Center, they used to think anybody that wasn't normal, or if you was a promiscuous woman, they would take you out of society. It was out in Exeter, Rhode Island, and they said thousands of men, women, and children like went through there, died there. You know, so Aiden would definitely be in the Lad Center. But yeah, Dr. Ladd, check him out. You know, it was this big. They ended up knocking down all the buildings because it was so bad. But listen, y'all, we on the end of our little nature walk. I gotta put the phone down, and but I appreciate everybody. I'm sure when we get back to the shop, you know, we'll definitely stream something else. But appreciate everybody. All right, we out. Grab a membership. Appreciate it. All right, how do I do it?